As happy as I have been this week with the Benioff family and trying to start the program with our families, homeless families, and getting them to shelter, and we're working on that very hard, just as celebratory, and certainly for the holidays, and I know the Board of Supervisors will join me and the department heads will join me that in addition, I can't think of also another better gift and to get people more jobs in this city. And with today's package of $325 million worth of appropriations that I'm asking the board to consider as a result of bond sales on at least 3 very important bond projects that we have in the city, we're moving forward on that and continuing these great projects. Our infrastructure projects have to do with parks, they have to do with our public safety buildings and our fire stations and our auxiliary water system, and they have to do with our streets. And I've asked the Board of Supervisors to be here, particularly Board President David Chu, who's been instrumental in our earthquake safety and emergency response bond that was passed last June. Scott Wiener, of course, his leadership this past November in the street repaving bond. And then Carmen can't be here today, but I want to acknowledge her leadership in the 2008 Parks bond. This $325 million supplemental appropriations going to the board today reflects these 3 very important bond programs and continue the work that was done. Phil Ginsberg should join us here today, but I also have Monique Moyer from the port. She's involved with not only the open space, but part of this bond. I'll go into detail a little later. Mohammed Nuru from our Public Works. Oh, there's Carmen. Come on in. Public Works instrumental in the public safety building and as well as the streets bond projects, and of course our fire chief with the AWSS. And as I indicated earlier, Supervisor Chu was instrumental in helping us pass the 2008 Parks bond. Phil Ginsberg can't be here today. I think he's out gardening somewhere. But I know that if he was here, he would be saying, we've done a good job, we've done a lot of parks, opened up a lot of rec centers, we've done really well. We've done so well, Mayor, I'm hearing him already, that he needs priority for the next bond program next year. But I wanted to celebrate this time because it is pushing forward something that I have personally made a commitment, not only in November, but even in my role as city administrator, as interim mayor, and now mayor-elect for next year. I'm not waiting for inauguration. These are projects, these are programs, these are jobs that both the supervisors and I have agreed to, and the department certainly wanted to lead to make sure that we keep everybody working. So with the Parks bond, there's a list of a number of parks. In fact, this is kind of the final, representing the final bond sales for the 2008 Parks bond, and I'm glad that this is being completed because it's a very aggressive time frame. As you know, we have to work very diligently with neighborhoods and with different agencies to get these parks, rec centers open. When it comes to the ESER bond, as Supervisor Chu has led, and last June, the $412 million earthquake and emergency response bond, we have several portions of that. The most important is the building of the public safety building in Mission Rock. That's already underway. If you go down there, you'll see construction already going on. The additional monies that are being sold with these bonds, and then is to keep that project going on the time frame in which Public Works is leading the way. And so far as I know, everything is on time and within the budget. So that's going ahead. In addition to that, PUC is working with our fire department in leading a way to begin looking at and doing all of the engineering work to improve our auxiliary water supply system. That's a great portion of that. And then under design and already under design with Public Works help are the 18 or so stations in the fire stations that are going to be redone with all that, with the money, the $412 million bond. Finally, with respect to the streets paving bond, we have the $248 million bond that the public just passed. I'm very gratified with that, and Supervisor Wiener led that effort, and we've already identified in our 5-year plan the various streets that will have priority. that need to, that have already been graded by Public Works as being of great necessity to pave. This is a huge relief, almost an average of about $20 million off of our general fund for the voters to have voted to pass this bond. Clearly, I understand that there had been some criticism that we ought not to use bonds to fund streets. We're going to be figuring that out for the long term, and we have my commitment to work with the board to do that, find a long-term solution for this that will be more appropriate for, I think, the voters. But they're giving us this one, I think, exceptional shot at catching up, if you will, on our streets bond. The port is here today because they have not only important infrastructure within this appropriations. There's about $4.4 million that we're eyeing towards the Brennan Street Wharf, which was a commitment that the port made with Rec and Park to really make that beautiful open space area for our pedestrian use. And then in addition to that, the basic underpinnings, if you will, for the James Herman cruise ship terminal on Pier 27. That is part of this. And we need to start not only the engineering for that, but we need to get that foundation going so that it is done in time for America's Cup. And department spokesperson can speak for that. All of this is important to the infrastructure of the city. It's a commitment that we have made for some time now, reflected in an agreed upon 10-year capital plan that the Board of Supervisors in the Mayor's office and then Mayor Gavin Newsom and my previous role, we pushed very hard. It's transparent, it's responsible, and it keeps a very strong promise to the public. Not only will these projects get done on time and within budget, but they keep a promise that the property taxes of our residents will not go beyond the 2006 levels. Each of these bond sales, each of these projects continue that promise. And so it's remarkable. That, to me, is a holiday gift to announce this and keep all these promises going, because I think it makes people feel that their public monies and their bond support continues to promise that they're involved and is transparent and is responsible. I want to thank all the supervisors that are here today and the department heads that are here, because they're helping me keep that promise. This is in addition to all the other infrastructure projects that were already underway, whether it's the Transbay Terminal or the Central Subway or Park Merced or Hunter's View. All of those projects continue to go forward. They are creating thousands of jobs. And I want to end by saying again, for these holidays, whether it's getting homeless families into shelters or getting people jobs, that to me is very worthy of the holiday spirit. And so, again, thanking the supervisors who have led these efforts. Thank you to the department heads who are helping to implement all these things. With that, take questions.
Mayor, you talked about jobs. Do you have any numbers on how many jobs you're going to be creating because of this?
It's ongoing. Each project has different numbers, and so we haven't summed it all up, but it's over, I think, different phases increase. For example, I think the public safety building, which is the largest of these three, are probably in this year going to have the largest number of construction jobs, because this is where the construction actually starts going vertical. They've been doing the excavation. I think if DPW and if the fire department knows exactly where it's at, I think we're talking about 200 jobs there at least, construction jobs. 2,100 altogether for the whole project.
Are these new jobs, or are these, in terms of the net jobs, people are working on projects all the time, and I think you just used the phrase, like ongoing.
Ongoing.
Are these construction workers who, without these projects, would be out of work, but their work is now continuing?
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So they're not technically new jobs, but they're people
Except for the street repaving ones. Yeah, we've been down on the street paving, and I know Scott knows this very well, that we've actually focused on local contractors to do most of that work. And so this initial bond, the 248, with this particular bond sale, I think the initial amount here is about $69 million. Those are new jobs. I think these are contractors that haven't had work for quite some time. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah,
And Mohammed?
in some of the building and construction trades, there's depression level unemployment, like 25%. Oh.
Yes,
No.
just talk.
Yeah, in some of the building and construction trades, there's depression level unemployment of around 25% or more. And so absolutely, these are not already existing jobs, and I think this will have a significant positive job impact for the trades. Scott Wiener, Supervisor Scott Wiener.
So Mayor, I just wondering that because with so many projects is going to be going on, or maybe already be start working, what can you say to the San Francisco residents, like you should bear some of the construction work or something like that?
If you're talking about, well, I think the public is appreciative that we're not waiting. The economy is still at 8.1% unemployment for our city. We don't expect any good news from the state. We certainly don't expect any good news from the federal authorities for this. So this is really our way of creating jobs for our city and making sure that we are continuing economically strong. And that's why we decided that before the holidays, we would indicate that we're going right to work. And these, again, when we talk about jobs, people can't, they won't enjoy the holidays unless they really know that their city is working hard to actually get people employed. And that, I think, is a good message. To me, that's a really good holiday message. Right, supervisors?
Sort of a requirement in these bonds that the work goes to companies in San Francisco or people that live in San Francisco?
Well, we have the local hire ordinance that our whole Board of Supervisors and I support. And it's a policy, and certainly in construction, it's an ordinance. So any construction that goes on, we have local hire goals that the contractors must meet, and that's an obligation. Having said that, I think for this street bond program, we indicated very strongly that many of the contracts would be focused on the local bidders. So that way, but the other larger contracts, there'll be open bidding for that. It's just everybody who bids successfully understands the obligation is to work with our city build program, work with the trainees that all the unions have agreed to hire over the years, and they're ready, they're eager to go to work. Whether it's laborers' work or carpenters' work or plumbers' work, they're all within that city build program that we created years ago. And everybody's excited that they'll be hiring through the hiring halls and through the local pre-apprenticeship as well as the apprenticeship programs.
Specifically, are they required through I guess was Diablo's 50% to hire half of their construction workers from San Francisco? These bonds, or are they exempt in some way? I don't know, David, maybe you know about this.
The ordinance actually calls for ratcheting up over time. So in year one, it's 25%, and it goes up, I think, by 5% every year until it gets up to 50%. So we are now in that first year. That's correct. Yeah.
Are any of these projects considered commerce multipliers or something that would increase commerce in one way or another?
Well, certainly the streets bond. If you fix the streets, people get to use them. Not only bicyclists, but obviously our transportation, both locally as well as these roads that connect to the interstate roads. We've had a lot of complaints, and I know Scott and DPW have fielded these complaints year after year, and that's why the voters kind of said, okay, we'll give you a break here. We'll pass this bond. It's a little more costly than it should be, but let's catch up. And then let's figure out the long term. And I think we've gotten that message loud and strong, and so we'll be working together to make that long term. But the commerce part of our roads is absolutely important.
When will people see dirt being moved?
Dirt's being moved on the public safety building already. It will be moved very shortly with the pumps that are identified in the auxiliary water system between our fire department and the PUC. The streets. I think they've got a project already almost completed, both streetscapes as well as paving. They all start in January, and we have a list of them if you would like to see what list we start. But this is getting the monies completed with all the paperwork so that we can go out and get the bid started. for the next phases of all of these projects and all these contracts.
Mayor, may I? In addition, for the Parks Bond, there are projects that are going to be moving forward next year. For example, in my district, the Dolores Park renovation, a lot of work on Glen Canyon and other parks. So we're going to see significant work on our city's parks moving forward as well.
And if there's, please, supervisors, come and speak. You look at the list of the parks, and I noticed there was one called Glen Canyon. That's kind of where I live, so I get to watch that one. But please, Supervisor.
I think just to speak on what, to elaborate on Supervisor Wiener's point, the Parks Bond certainly has been around since 2008, and we actually have been seeing the fruits of that labor ongoing. We just finished opening up McCoppin Square in my district, which was a renovation project that just finished up. We finished the library in my district, so not only our Ortega Branch Library, but also the Parkside Branch Library just opened up this year as well. And currently under construction in our district is the Sunset Rec Center, and so there's a ton of projects that are currently ongoing. One other thing to Barbara's point about different ordinances that would apply that would really help to help the local businesses. One of the things that Supervisor David Chu and I worked on in the past, along with Mayor Lee, has been the issue about local businesses. And so we do continue to have a local bid preference for small and local businesses in San Francisco. And to the extent that we're able to see winners come out through that process, we will likely see a multiplier effect because of that. Many of our local businesses tend to buy and tend to hire locally as well. And so we hope that some of these existing ordinances will also help in the process.
Mayor, you said the streets bond was helping save $20 million in the general fund. Do you know what the deficit is looking like for the next fiscal year?
Our overall budget, we've indicated, and we're doing two-year budgets. So this year it's 263 million is the deficit, and then we have estimated that it'll be 375 for the second year. And that's what all the departments are working on in terms of reporting back to me in early January what their appropriate, we've asked them to take a 5% cut, budget reduction in year one and another 5% in year two with a 2.5% contingency.
So in terms of job creation for these particular trades, would you say it's more of a drop in the bucket, or is it more, someone who works in these trades is going to know somebody who likely to get a job? And what's the scale, I guess?
The scale, I think that the trade unions have been extremely positive with these bonds. They've been very helpful. Many of the union leaders were with us on the streets bond, for sure, and they certainly were on our ESER, our earthquake safety bond. And so I think you're going to, when you talk to them, I think they're going to get some thumbs up that they, because I don't think there's a whole lot of construction going on outside of the borders of San Francisco, very much that I hear. And so I think they're very gratified to know that San Francisco is moving forward in these projects.
Do you mean government kind of construction or all construction?
I mean both private and public. I think right now in this bad economy, it's kind of government financed projects that are seeming to lead the way, whether it's at our port or previously at our airport, but now with our government buildings and our street bonds. And I think at the port, I think they're smiling because they're about to finish their EIR involving Pier 27, and they're excited to get this cruise ship terminal going. That's going to be a huge, huge boom for our port, but also for our city. A cruise ship terminal is really about to come. A lot of people didn't believe that was going to happen. I think not only happens in our lifetime, it actually happens while we're in office, right, Monique? Right. Environmental impact report. Those things take a long time, but we've been pushing this one very quickly, and then we expect it either at the end of the year or early January to be done. Right, Monique?
This week is the vote.
This week's the vote? All right.
President Chu, can you talk about what's involved in the vote this afternoon with the Board of Supervisors concerning this?
I'm sorry, vote with regards to...
Introduction.
Yeah, it's an introduction, yes. Obviously, we have a legislative process that we're going to be kicking off today with the introductions of some of the appropriations for this. But I also want to join Mayor Lee in really thanking not just the mayor and his leadership in the various roles that he has had, not just my colleagues and their leadership in pushing forth the various appropriations. We have folks behind us who have been spearheading a lot of the work. I want to thank Chief Hayes White for her leadership, along with my office and others in the earthquake safety bond, Monique Moyer for really moving forward a lot of things in the port. And to the question around commerce, I think when that cruise ship terminal is created, it is going to bring in millions and millions of tourists and dollars into San Francisco for an investment that we've all been wanting to make. And I want to thank Mohammed Nuru, whose office will be building a lot of this stuff, as well as the voters of San Francisco that had an understanding that while capital planning and capital infrastructure may not be the sexiest thing that we do here in San Francisco, it is the most basic thing that city government needs to do, really reinvesting in our parks and our roads and in our public safety infrastructure.
Okay?
Can you speak about the ad? I just kind of noticed that earlier before you came in that was up there, and one of the things, I don't know if it's completely related to today, but one of the things I noted was that there was something about small business loans. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about or the ad in general.
No, we got more good news along the way. And as I said earlier, I think with the support of the board and the departments, I'm not waiting for inauguration. We're going to just push forward on all these projects that we promised to deliver, and we're working on all of them. The specific question you had about microloans has to do with some neighborhood commercial corridors that we're very eyeing towards, and I don't want to let out the balloon beforehand, but we do have announcements forthcoming about how we're going to help our commercial corridors improve, go after those vacancies. And again, it was a promise that I had made in the last 3 months, but I know that the board was very much interested in making sure that the commercial corridors all over the city, not just mid-market where I've been concentrating on, but all over the city gets paid attention.
Could I just ask you a question about a related topic that I say is related because you mentioned it twice, so I kind of feel like it's okay, and that's on homeless families. Could you just talk about whatever the process is that your office went through, because there was such a gap between about a week ago when your point people were saying there's lots of shelter available, it's not a crisis, really downplaying the problem when the coalition was, having protests on the steps of City Hall and demanding meetings with you, and you didn't want to meet with them directly, to now being in a situation where everybody is kind of jumping, stepping all over each other to get all of the homeless families housed by the holidays. It just seems like it's been a very marked contrast, and I'm just wondering if you could talk about kind of the process that you've been going through in the past week to address this.
Well, it may surprise you, but if I'm not in front of some camera, or if we're not in front of some camera, we're actually doing real work behind the scenes. And with respect to the homeless families, it has bothered me. I mean, I've been a housing advocate for a long, long time, since before I even worked for government. And housing has been important. It's just that it's extremely complex and expensive. And I know that Trent Rohr has indicated earlier that in the past administration, they thought that this money that they call the Dave Matthews Band money was supposed to be used as one time to try to build housing. As you know, it's extremely expensive, and a lot of it was waiting for federal and state dollars. Well, I come into office and we realize we don't have federal and state dollars. So what are we going to do? Well, I'm not going to let money like that lie around. We have to put it into action. So we were figuring out how to maximize it. We were working with the Housing Authority to look at these. In fact, when a couple months ago, when I was looking at these boarded up units, we were asking for a status report on when they were going to be ready. And I think the Housing Authority was also waiting for monies to be had, and those monies weren't coming around. So we made an executive decision to use the money that we did have, combine it with a very special announcement from the Benioff Salesforce Foundation, and lo and behold, putting all that together, we now have $3 million, which we can really do something about, and that is we committed to wiping out that list of immediate families that were living in shelters, potentially living in cars and vehicles that we didn't have enough information about. But now we have a very good commitment that we'll get many of these families in before the holidays. So I think the combination of these funds at this time were ripe. But beforehand, we still are working behind the scenes to do more affordable housing and more workforce housing, as well as homeless housing. There are some projects that are underway, but it's really matching up the appropriate funds to make sure that they can get done properly.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, supervisors. Thank you. Thank you.